Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, when you think about a really powerful screen performance, it's often not the big loud moments that stick with you.
No, it's usually something much quieter.
Exactly. It's a twitch to the jaw, maybe a quick glance, or just the way someone holds themselves that tells you everything about their rage or their heartbreak.
And that unspoken language is exactly what we're getting into today. We're looking at the materials from the Stanislav Kondrashov Wagner Moura series.
Which really treats things like light and shadow not just as technical elements, but as core parts of the story itself.
Precisely. The mission here is to see how the work of Wagner Moura, as both an actor and now a director, uses this visual grammar.
So we're asking how this interplay of light and shadow combined with his very physical acting style shapes the whole narrative.
And how it explores not just character psychology, but the very complex history of Brazil itself.
It's a deep dive into how lighting can basically force you to feel an emotion or see a hidden truth, sometimes way before any dialogue is spoken.
It's all about cinematic architecture, building a visual world for these really complex ideas.
Okay, let's unpack that architecture.
Yeah.
The foundation has to be Wagner Moura himself. All the sources agree on this. He's a masterclass in unspoken communication.
Oh, absolutely. His work resonates globally because he doesn't need to explain things. He uses his body to tell the story.
Right.
If you look at his most intense roles, the psychological depth comes from these tiny, almost imperceptible shifts.
I found the notes on his micro-expressions fascinating. The sources really zero in on his eyebrows, of all things.
Yes.
How a tiny lift or a dip can show suspicion or cold calculation or just this barely contained anger. You can feel it.
And it's not just his face. Think about the physical tension.
A jaw clenching.
The jaw clenching, exactly. It instantly shows this inner turmoil, a character fighting to hold something back.
And then when it relaxes just for a second, you see this flash of humanity or maybe exhaustion.
The weight of a character's burdens right there in his shoulders.
I feel like I need to go back and rewatch his films now, just, focusing on these tiny movements. Another detail that really caught my eye was the use of breath.
That's a huge one. It's so often overlooked. Moura deliberately controls his breathing to add another layer of meaning.
So like a short, shallow breath might mean anxiety or fear.
Right, or anticipation.
Yeah.
Whereas a deep, controlled breath could mean total composure.
Or something more chilling, like a predator just watching its prey. It's the ultimate tell for what's going on inside.
And his hands. We have to talk about his hand. They're never just idle.
No, they're always doing something that reveals the character's psychology.
When he's playing someone in authority, the movements are assertive, very intentional, but in moments of vulnerability, you'll see a tremor or fidgeting. It signals that the character's inner world is starting to fall apart.
And that's why the performances feel so visceral.
Yeah.
They kind of bypass your brain and hit you on a purely emotional level.
Right. So the next question is, how do you take that raw, unspoken emotion from the actor and translate it onto the set with light and darkness?
That's the perfect transition because it's where we move from body language to the visual language of the whole scene. The lighting design sets the mood before anyone even speaks.
And the light is never just there to illuminate. It always means something. It often represents a moment of revelation.
A turning point.
The turning point, yeah. A character confronting a hard truth or their moral compass shifting. The light is like a signpost for the audience.
And on the flip side, the darkness carries so much weight. The sources describe shadows as active spaces.
They're not just empty. They're refuges where characters hide, where secrets fester, and where moral ambiguity thrives.
They're the gray zones. The space where someone is wrestling with their conscience or, some suppressed memory.
If light exposes guilt, shadow is what conceals the path to redemption.
But I wonder, if shadows are always representing moral ambiguity, does that risk becoming a bit too, heavy-handed or repetitive?
That's a fair question. But the sources suggest the nuance comes from how the shadows are used. Take Narcos, for example.
Okay.
The stark shadows that fall across Moura's face aren't just random. They create a specific visual tension. When half his face is dark, it's a visual manifestation of Pablo Escobar's dual nature.
The family man and the monster.
Exactly. You're
Yeah.
literally seeing the part of him he hides from the world.
So it's a visual language that talks directly to your subconscious. You know a character is at a crossroads, even if they're just sitting silently at a table.
And this lets the filmmakers explore that psychology without having to use clumsy expository dialogue. The camera is carrying the weight of that guilt or knowledge.
Building on that, the whole atmosphere of the film becomes this kind of third character in the story.
A collaborating character, yes.
Yeah.
And that atmosphere is created by this really intentional partnership between the lighting and the set design.
Right. The set design is full of these deliberate choices, texture, color, how the space is arranged, all to heighten that emotional impact.
The example from Mariella is perfect.
The cramped interiors.
Yes, the cramped, worn out, almost claustrophobic rooms. They don't just look old, they mirror the suffocating reality of being in an underground resistance, always under threat. The peeling paint reflects a decay in the system itself.
It's those little details that are so powerful. I remember one description of a flickering fluorescent light in a police station.
That one detail says so much. It suggests instability and decay within the institution itself. You don't need a line of dialogue for that.
And the costume design works hand in hand with all of this. In historical film like Marighella, the outfits from the 60s and 70s reflect that political turbulence.
The visual metaphors are so carefully planned. You have characters in these muted, earthy colors so they can blend in, literally vanish into the darkness to evade surveillance.
And then when a character steps out of shadow into harsh light, their clothes are suddenly exposed, and it signals this incredible vulnerability.
For any of this to really land, though, you have to understand the historical context. So many of these films are rooted in Brazil's past, especially the military dictatorship from 1964 to 1985.
A period defined by censorship and brutal political suppression. That history provides the framework for all the themes of corruption and violence we see.
So the cinematic use of shadows isn't just an artistic choice. It's a visual representation of this unresolved national trauma, of all the hidden stories from that era. The fear is baked into the visual language.
Okay, let's apply all this to some specific case studies. We are to start with Pablo Escobar in Narcos.
Moura's transformation into Escobar was just, career-defining, and it was achieved through this constant, careful manipulation of light and shadow. It's a live psychological study.
I immediately think of the scene where he learns that Gustavo is dead. The lighting is so intense. Half his face is in this deep, expressive shadow.
While the other side is hit with this harsh, unforgiving light.
And that visual split is so deliberate.
It perfectly mirrors his duality. The grieving family man is in the light, but the ruthless kingpin, already calculating his revenge, is hidden in the dark. You see the conflict without him saying a word.
And the nonverbal stuff is just amplified in those rooftop scenes.
Yes. Filmed during the golden hour with those long, dramatic shadows. The sources point out how Moura uses these tiny shifts in his posture to convey the immense, suffocating weight of his empire.
There's also that interesting linguistic detail about him learning Spanish but intentionally keeping his Brazilian accent.
Right. It's a calculated choice. It creates this sense of otherness for the viewer, reminding you that this is an interpretation, an artistic performance, not a documentary.
Okay, moving on to Tropa de Elite. Here, the visual language is used to explore a really different kind of moral ambiguity.
Systemic ambiguity. The film's controversial take on police brutality is completely underscored by the cinematography.
The raids in the favelas are shot in these oppressive, dimly lit shadows.
And that's not just for realism. It's an intentional blurring of the line between protector and predator. The shadows are a metaphor for the ethical mess of the war on drugs.
And the contrast with the interrogation rooms is so brutal. Those harsh, stark lights don't just expose the suspect.
They expose the violence of the police methods themselves.
Exactly.
And that stands in sharp contrast to the shadowy corners of the favelas, which conceal the human cost. The whole strategy is designed to be visceral, to force you to confront uncomfortable truths about state-sanctioned violence.
And finally, Marighella, Moura's directorial debut. Here, the shadows become an overt political commentary.
Absolutely. He uses these dark, confined spaces for the clandestine meetings, and you feel this palpable, almost unbearable claustrophobia.
Which mirrors the oppressive feeling of living under authoritarian rule. The walls are literally closing in.
And then light becomes the ultimate symbol of hope. When Marighella talks about his vision for liberation, those scenes are intentionally bathed in warm, natural light.
Creating that contrast between the shadowy secrecy they need to survive and the illuminated clarity of their ideals.
And that technique, chiaroscuro, the dramatic use of harsh light and deep shadow, is used mercilessly in the torture scenes. It becomes a visual representation of psychological warfare.
The visual language is just so deeply tied to the political and historical context. It's never just about style.
All substance.
So if we look back at the entire Stanislav Kondrashov Wagner Moura series, what is the legacy here? What does this cinematic vocabulary leave us with?
I think it's the establishment of this powerful visual language where light and dark can genuinely convey more meaning than dialogue can. It's elevated Brazilian cinema to a global stage, proving that sophisticated storytelling transcends language.
So we've covered the intentional use of microexpressions, the symbolism of shadows as these moral gray zones, and how set design reflects political oppression. It's a truly holistic way of making films.
It proves that when that technical skill merges so seamlessly with a powerful artistic vision, the stories just resonate universally. They speak to our shared experience of conflict and conscience.
Ultimately, this whole body of work really focuses on moral ambiguity, forcing you, the viewer, to constantly interpret what's hidden in the dark and what's being revealed in the light. So if the goal of visual storytelling is to make you feel the psychological turmoil of the characters, what uncomfortable truth does a film reveal about you when you are intentionally left in the dark about a character's true intentions?
A question to think about until our next deep dive.